attending tonight's informational meeting. We really appreciate it. We're hoping that this sparks some dialogue, provides you some information about the finances and the status of business council dealings of the tribe. Before we begin, I just want to remind you that there's plenty of food, so feel free to get more if you're still hungry. I'll begin the presentation and you may continue eating. Feel free to get up and grab some more food if you want. The food will be out for a while, so feel free at your leisure to grab more food if you wish. So we have designed these. I think this is probably our 5th or 6th public meeting in the last few years. The intention of these public meetings are really just to give more information out to the public, to make them aware. It's sometimes difficult to decide what to present and what not to present. There's a lot of details that go into some of these things, so I want to apologize in advance for some of the vague things, but feel free if you have any additional questions about something to raise your hand. We have another mic here, and they don't know it, but I've delegated these two to be the mic runners, so they can run the mic to you if you have any questions tonight. I wanted to send the greetings from the 3 other business council members. We have one that's out of town and 2 that are out sick today, this evening, and we're not able to make it. I know they had wanted to attend and planned to attend, but due to scheduling and some other health issues, they're not able to make it tonight, but they send their wishes, and these are things that we've all worked on together, so I know they're glad that we're helping present these and are happy to answer your questions about any of this. So the plan for tonight is really, we prepared a presentation that I will give. This is for the most part, the very similar presentation that we did with the General Council meeting a couple of weeks ago. I see a number of familiar faces from that meeting. So the plan is to not go over to a lot of it with so much detail, given that many people have already suffered through it once. So I'll keep it brief for the most part, but again, if you have any questions about any of this, feel free to raise your hand. I'm happy to explain anything in more detail. We're happy to entertain questions about any of this information. So I'll begin. All right, so the 3 topics that we're going to talk about, we have some status updates from the Northern Arapahoe Business Council. I'm going to give a quick overview of the finances of the tribe as of 7 months into the fiscal year of 2018, and then we have some information on the Liquor Hotel and Casino. We actually didn't get too far into that in the General Council meeting before lunch came, so I'll spend some time on that as well. Working really well until just the same thing happened that I don't know what's up. So some quick organizational developments for the tribe. We have, as of January 1st of 2018, developed new policies and procedures. We are in the process of reviewing that again, and as part of the new policies and procedures, we built in that every year the Business Council would review them. So we're getting some feedback from programs, from employees about what works and what's not, what's in there and what's not. So there's going to be a constant state of revision. The goal is really to provide a fair and a standardized process for all employees so that everyone knows what to expect. We've gotten feedback, things aren't fair, people felt like they were retaliated against and things like that. So we wanted to try and eliminate that as much as possible through policy, and we're beginning to develop more training for our employees and directors on some of those as well. And so that's part of this. The other part of that is changing the culture in terms of what directors are allowed and what they're expected to do. So part of this is the budget process. We've asked each director to come up with a budget that's going to work for them. We will go through projections on the business council side, revise some of those budgets, and allow the directors to provide us feedback. we're hoping to get this process done soon, at the beginning of December, as close as possible. And the time is not great because of elections, and so I think there's going to probably be an initial approval, and then when the new term starts, and the sitting business council at that time will sort of give the final approval once they have an opportunity to review it. So we want to give programs a chance to know that they have an approved budget going into the fiscal year starting January 1st, so we've begun that process with them already. So as part of the work that we've been doing for the last, I guess, year and a half, is really trying to figure out a way of how we model economic. So part of that, we've undertaken a review earlier this spring about getting information from programs that have gone through this before. And really the direction that we're moving toward as that entity is trying to develop a separate economic development arm of the tribe that includes a lot of stakeholders, but that's also separate from the political part of the tribe. So what we've come to the conclusion is that the business council are elected officials and sometimes make political decisions. The terms of 2 years are not conducive to long-term development. So we really want something that's going to stabilize that and allow for business decisions to be made about enterprises for the long term that's going to carry us for generations and generations. So that's work that we've begun. The key point of that is it has to be community driven. So we've been reaching out to certain community members to try and soften some of the edges and then be able to present something to the community to get their feedback. And really allow that inputs and allow that to be community driven, because the community decides who the political leaders are, and at this point in time, the political leaders are going to be the ones that make that decision of what that looks like ultimately. So the community really needs to be involved in all of that. And the other thing that we've been working on is part of that is outreach. So we've been working with federal partners, state partners, and one of our recent partners that we've the partnership that we've been developing is with the city of Longmont, Colorado.
So I'll speak on a portion of the Longmont, Colorado. So probably about 3-4 months ago, we get a process to work with the Boulder City and the Boulder County area. When we began that process, I went down for a meeting with a few other representatives from the tribe to initiate the discussions and then begin the planning for a Indigenous Day event that takes place this coming weekend. And so as we were down there, we got to be introduced to a lot of the mayors within the area. One of the mayors of the Longmont City had come forward by the name of Brian Bagley. And he wanted to reach out to the tribe and get a little more interaction and begin some discussions. So he asked the tribe if it would be okay. He asked the business council if it would be okay to come up and visit the Arapaho tribe here on the Blue Reservation. And so we agreed and accepted that he wanted to come up and learn a little more. And the whole process and idea of the whole thing is the fact that the whole Boulder community, Boulder area is the ancestral homeland of us, the Arapaho people, Front Range, Denver area. And so their mission and their intention was specifically tied to that. Is trying to recognize the fact that before any of the cities or any of the settlers that lived within those areas, it was us, the Arapaho, call that place home. And so they wanted to recognize that fact that we were basically pushed out of the area into another area which we call the river. And that they wanted to pay homage to the Arapaho people because city of Longmont, city of Boulder, and et cetera, is that they have to first come to the reality and realization that it was our home before theirs. And so within that process, the mayor of Longmont wanted to reach out to the local people and actually begin the discussion to say, well, you know, we recognize the fact that your tribe, your people were here before we were. And how can we as the city of Longmont and the Northern Arapaho tribe work on partnerships to help build a relationship together? And so they came up and he brought a bunch of his elected officials, city councilmen, a lot of his city admin staff, some people from their sister cities organization, which is kind of like a board exchange type of organization. And they came up and presented and put out a lot of information pertaining to their city of Longmont. And within a lot of these presentations, they brought specific people to help them understand the dynamics of their city, to understand the economy of their city, to understand basically what their people are made of. And in the hopes that we, on our end, with our programs, with our people, our departments can possibly partner up with their people to see how we utilize each other for ideas and for possible support partnerships. And so we began that and had a pretty good turnout, had a good meeting. The mayor of Longmont gifted the Arapaho tribe 2 buffalo, 1 buffalo bull and 1 buffalo cow, and wanted to begin that discussion in that manner as a presentation to Arapaho, something that we will do as buffalo. So we will be receiving that about a year from now because of the red uniforms. And that was part of the gift of Longmont coming up here to begin the discussion with this. And so after that meeting that we had here, they invited us down there. They wanted us to actually see their city. And so a delegation of business council members, also department heads, went down to Longmont to see exactly what they were talking about. In these discussions, they talked about the traditional aspect of the lands as it pertains to us, the way that we used to utilize the lands. They have open space areas that they protect from development so that they always remain as they should. And so they wanted to show us those areas because again, they have an understanding that those are areas that were probably critical to us in our times. And for hunting and gathering and things like that. And they also wanted to also show us the area, because again, we mentioned that we would love to see a partnership with Longmont, because again, that presents an opportunity for the Arapaho tribe to work on possibly economic development for their cities. The biggest reason for that is again because of the land base and the population that's in these areas. And the fact that again, it's our own land. So one thing that we've always heard throughout a lot of our history is how the Arapaho people and different tribal members have always wanted to be back in Colorado. And I wish that we actually had land there in our area that we want to call home. And so we expressed that with the mayor and their city representatives, and they were very receptive to that. They said, well, you know, we do have lands that you guys can purchase if you wanted to purchase lands. And we do have needs. We are they're a tech-savvy city, and they're always dealing with a shortage of workers. So they have the opposite issue of us, where they have a lot of jobs, not enough people to fill the jobs, and we have vice versa. You know, we have a lot of people that can fill jobs, but we just don't have the opportunity with actual jobs. So we were looking at all those aspects of what it would possibly be to possibly purchase some land in Longmont, possibly develop some type of business. Again, that's very vital for discussion. It's very premature right now. But again, welcomed into the area, very good people, had a very good mindset. It was a lot different than the reception we get here in Wyoming, where the people were actually very welcoming and inviting. They offered their homes up to us because again, they wanted to spend the time to actually learn more about the history of the people. But of course, ultimately, we were able to have some very good discussions and talked about a lot of topics pertaining to anywhere from youth services, juvenile services, to court system services that deals with homelessness and substance abuse. We talked about the broadband, because again, that's kind of one thing that Adam's working on for us through the River Internet. Longmont is known for the fastest internet in the nation. And so we felt it was good to bring Adam down so that he could partner up with him and bounce ideas off of each other. Brought down one of the judges from the trial court to learn more about some of their programs that they're working on to help criminalize our membership, find ways that we can actually build programs around them that actually support them and help them to actually restore their livelihoods back into society. So there was a lot of different people there, behavioral health specialists, they're known in the nation for some of the other behavioral health initiatives. And so we had just an array of different people. The public works department director was there, the natural resources people, because again, we know the gas within the area. So we did a lot of reaching out to each other. We were able to make some pretty good connections, begin possible partnerships to continue to grow in that area, and hopefully one day maybe we can, as Raptors, again call that home, be able to have a stake in land there again, and be able to work on possible developments that will hopefully help the track. So that's kind of it in a nutshell there. Again, there's more details to it. If you guys would like to know more, I'm glad we will continue to express more of that. But again, it's in the early stages, and we're hoping to continue that relationship, continue working in that direction to see where that goes. Thank you.
So we are hopeful that this partnership builds a lot of capacity for the tribe. They have experienced a lot of economic downturn and built from that as well. So I think there's a lot of lessons that they've gone through that we can learn from, and a lot of programs that they have, I think, that we can model for our own community. So it's an exciting partnership that we're developing, and I think in the coming months and years, we want the community to be as involved in that partnership as they will come. So I want to share a couple legal updates. So the boundary case, we petitioned to the Supreme Court. They denied the petition, so the 10th ruling stands. That's the last step on that legal recourse for that. So we can't go any further with that. The two others they didn't mention at the General Council meeting. So we had filed a complaint in the court of law regarding the opioid epidemic here on the Red River Reservation. We are complaining against the manufacturers and the distributors of opioids. We are working with a firm called Berg Simpson. They're based out of Denver, Colorado. And for the past few months, they've been trying to get some information from our tribal health, our clinic, and the tribe to develop what they call an assessment of damages. So they would be able to file that. So we are close to filing the next stage of that complaint, and that's going to be a process that's going to take years and years and years in the court system. But the ultimate goal is really to provide, to get some resources from these distributors and manufacturers to provide resources here in our community for the detrimental effects that the opioid crisis has here in our communities, and has had for years and years. The next one is the Northern Rubber Tribe versus Pioneer Oil and Gas. It's a fairly new legal fairly new suit that we have. So we are basically, this is a tribal court case. We filed a complaint in tribal courts. And this is, I want to put it on everyone's radar because it's complaints are public, but this is really about holding this oil and gas company accountable for cleanup and to sort of fulfill the obligations that they said they were going to fulfill. There's a lot of details in this in terms of well cleanup and plugging in the bed new wells, following correct processes, but really it's just, this is more geared toward making sure environmental concerns are brought forth and there's recourse for that. So those are the legal updates. So Wind River Intertribal Council, so we meet about once a month. So yesterday was October 1st, we started a new fiscal year for the shared programs that we have. And we have fishing game, which includes endangered species. We are partnering with the Shoshone tribe to provide services in transportation, Wind River Tribal Court, the Tribal Water Engineers Office, and it's not a 638 contract, but Head Start is also under the shared programs and our minerals compliance. So the Wind River Intertribal Council has a pretty discrete role in terms of what is managing those, what we are calling shared resources now, and what we have agreed to enter into contracts with the federal government on to provide those services here in the communities. And so we meet once a month to try and provide some oversight management for those. And as part of that, there has been a lot of movements in the last few, probably last 6 or 7 months of trying to make sure that we have appropriate infrastructure for these programs that we're running through the Intertribal Council. So that includes things like human resources, which was not a program under the previous shared entity, and a revamped finance office with new policies and procedures, and sort of a new outlook in terms of what accountability means and the software that we use to track things like that. So it's been a long process, but it's things I have to keep reminding myself personally that we didn't get in this overnight. This has been a long-standing issue. Not only with the Intertribal Council, but just tribes in the Indian country have had a lot of issues trying to have these foundations put in place. So it's going to take some time to really develop those and change the culture in those situations so that we can provide that infrastructure. So that's really our goal of this, is really trying to make sure that we provide that infrastructure that's going to handle that. It's going to make sense. It's going to protect the resources of the tribes here on the reservation. Right, so just a quick overview of finance. So in 2018, our revenue is increasing. 2015 and 2016 were really sort of rock bottom years. It was really tough years for the tribes, and the leadership in those years had to make some really tough decisions because there just wasn't the money available. So we've been recovering well from those, and not at the level we were in like 2014 and 2013. But we've been sort of rebounding pretty nicely. So our 2018 revenue was up from 2017, which was up from 2016. And so we're bringing in more money, but because of that, we're also spending a little bit more money as well. Like I mentioned before, our tribal budget process has begun. We're really trying to stick to that so that we can protect the financial resources of the tribe, to cut down on frivolous spending or duplication of services and things like that. So revenue for 2018 as of the end of August was $7.2 million. In addition to that, we captured as our IAC rate $1 million. We'll bring in a little bit more these next couple months for IAC, but that's pretty close to what it's going to be for the entire year. And so total revenue, this includes all of the revenue that's from the 7.2, our IAC, as well as any state and federal funding that we received for so far for 2018 is $13.8 million. So this is just a quick look at the severance that we bring in. Severance is mostly made up of the revenue that's the tax from our oil and gas that we have. As you can see, it's there's been no month in 2018 so far that's been under $200,000 per month. So that's a good sign. In 2014 and 2015 and 2016. I think 2016 particularly, I don't think there was any month where it was above $200,000. So this is a good turn for the tribe in terms of bringing in revenue. And so this is the revenue that's the $7 million that we brought in. This is how it's split up by type. So yes.
What is IBC?
IBC, sorry, it's indirect costs. So that's the money that we bring in for grants that pays for the infrastructure, like financing and things like that. So revenue by type. So our biggest right now is severance and royalty. That's 38% of our revenue for 2018 so far is from that. The next highest is casino, which is 20%. The casino has transferred almost $2.5 million, I think, so far for 2018. And then FIPO, which has brought in about 17% of the income, of the revenue for the tribe. And then IDC is the $1 million that we talked about, is 13%. The group home, which the tribe manages and operates, has brought in about $500,000. And then other is about the same, so we bring in other income from programs or revenue sources. That all total together is 6%. All right, so this is broken down a little bit, has some dollars attached to this. So as you can see, group home is $500,000. Our highest, obviously, you can see the big spike is the clinic. So far in 2018, as of August, the clinic brought in $5.5 million. So that accounts for a big increase in revenues as well. As you can see, severance is $3.1 million. And casino, so this is from August, and we just got an update. So this is August is $1.6 million for the casino transfer in the first 8 months of the year. All right, so total expenditures by program is $8.3 million. All right, so this is what the categories of the expenses are. Payroll is by far our biggest, so wages and fringe benefits are 55% of the money that goes out, which is typical. That payroll is the highest expense, and almost all organizations' payroll is going to be the highest expense. So we coupled expenses, things like office supplies, maintenance on vehicles. Those expenses all add up to about 15%. We spend 10% on professional fees, and that's a conglomerate as well. So attorney fees, consultants, contractors, all of those professional fees, when we pay the plumber and things like that. That's all 10% of our expenses have been professional fees. And then assistants, 13% of our expenses this year so far is in assistants. Yes.
So the question mainly dealt with payroll. The concern was, are we paying too much in payroll? Can we cut down expenses in payroll because people aren't performing a job function that's valuable to the tribe? And there's duplication of services, and with the goal, I think, of perhaps providing more assistance to tribal members and increasing that expense. So part of this, so I think that's a good question, and that's something that we've been tracking on. I think we don't want to look
at it through a personality lens. We want to review it as a programmatic function, right? So we're pushing policy and procedures. We make sure everything has a job description. We're making sure our programs have budgets. And so then when our job is to look at everything sort of the big picture. So when we are able to see some things,
we've been
eliminating a couple of positions probably a year, because when we
see the budgets and we see this person does this and we see this other program that they provide the same function, we've transferred people to fill a different position and then combine those positions. So we undergo that process through this programmatic lens, but we don't want to go through it as of, I don't like the work that you're doing, so you're gone, and we're just eliminating the position. Because I don't think that's helpful for the tribe in long term either. So we want to make sure the decisions we're making are programmatic and are going to benefit the tribe long term, and are not based off of, so what I see you do on Tuesday is going to sort of determine your outcome and the program's outcome for the foreseeable future. So we're undergoing that process through that way. And you want to say, yep.
And to answer, Gloria, on your duplication of services, so that's the whole reason why back, I think at the couple of public meetings ago, we said we were going to go 477 on our social services programs, such as TANF, Workforce Investment Act opportunities, child care, general assistance, Johnson O'Malley, and other programs, so that we have all of our programs under one umbrella and providing one application for services across the board, so that we can effectively reduce those duplication of services within the tribe and to help more families and more tribal members receive services and maximize our dollars. So that was our whole intent of doing 477, which right now is kind of stalled. You know, President Trump signed the 477 law into effect in May of this year, but right now there is a memorandum of agreement that needs to be done between the Department of Interior and Department of Labor before we can move forward. So, you know, that's bureaucracy that's unnecessary, because it wasn't in the regulations, but it's something that the agencies have to work out. Until then, our tribe, so to speak, is kind of held hostage before we can move forward and integrate those programs into one. So we're kind of delayed a little bit on implementing our 477 program, but again, that was our whole basis, was to eliminate the duplication of services and to provide more services across the board for as many families as we could.
Yeah, I think it's just, my concern was a little bit of the fact that expenses and payroll oversee the assistance. So basically it's like we have all of these programs that are supposed to be there to assist, and yet the expenses and payroll is costing more than what they're able to help with. Like, I just want to know, you know, what are the steps that you guys are taking to get the assistance percentage up, as opposed to the payroll and expensive, to where you're actually assisting more, instead of, yeah, we have all these programs that can assist you, or, you know, that's supposed to be there to assist you, but they don't have the funds to assist you. That's kind of what I'm asking.
So I do want to clarify, and this might be helpful. So assistance in this specific chart means the money that goes directly from the business council to tribal members. So assistance in this chart does not mean the money that TANF provides to tribal members for their fees, or if other programs like LIHEAP, they provide direct funding to utility companies. We call that assistance on sort of the level, but on this specific one, this category is just money from the business council to individuals or vendors on behalf of individuals. So this doesn't mean the amount of money that like TANF and GA and WIC and those people provide assistance to others. So that is actually expenses, and that's not actually reflected in this chart, because this is just a tribal chart. Most of those programs are federal or state funded, and so we didn't include them on this one, because part of it is we want to capture the difference between the revenue we're bringing in and the revenue that's going out. That revenue from the federal and state is already allocated and has to go for specific reasons. So we don't think that really tells a good story of how the Business Council manages finances. So. All right, so this is a breakdown of where our payroll goes. So the clinic is 37% of the payroll that you saw up there. Federal and state grant programs account for 27% of our total payroll. Tribal, which is the government sides, tribal buildings and things like that, 26%. And then our IDC, which is money that we get from grant programs to pay our finance staff, to pay our HR staff, to pay for half of the business council salaries, that's 10%. 10% of our payroll goes to IDC categories. And so, speaking more on a more in-depth look at payroll, that has cost us $14.6 million in 2018. So this includes tribal and grant funded that we did. So, and a clinic as well. So this just as comparison for 2017, 12 months of 2017, that was $17 million. We're at 8 months of 2018, we're at 14 million. So we're going to exceed that 17 million that we did in 2017. A lot of that growth is at the clinic. You can see the 37% of so far this year is the clinic payroll. Last year, it was, I think, like 25%, about a quarter of our payroll. So they've increased a lot. They've hired a lot more people and are providing more services through those people. So you can see the payroll's increasing by month. There's a trend there that's slowly inching up. Again, a lot of that is due to the clinic expansions. They're bringing in more people. We haven't really created more positions and on the tribal sides, and we haven't received a whole lot more grants and grant-funded positions. So most of this increase is because of the clinic. All right, so this is assistance. This is the money that goes from the Business Council to individuals or vendors on behalf of individuals. That so far this year, through September 14th, is $992,000. In 2017, by comparison, it's $631,000. This is a breakdown of month. So you can see February was a low point for us of $72,000, low being relative, and then most of it's sort of been pretty steady, and so I don't have the final numbers for September since we just ended a couple days ago, but as of September 14th, it was $93,000 for September. Halfway through the month is gonna increase. All right, so that's the expenses part of it. Excuse me. Just quick updates on the Wind River Casino. We went through a 2017 audit earlier this year. That audit has been completed. This year we have a new auditor from the previous 6 years, Smith Harrison LLP. They did the audits. They issued an unmodified or clean opinion for 2017. This is from their statement. It's their opinion that sort of spells out the unmodified opinion. They're based out of Las Vegas, Nevada. And this is, we presented this a couple of times, but I don't know if we got to this other time, but this is, I think we're pretty fortunate to have Smith Harrison just because they have a lot of experience in Indian gaming. The owner of the company, the managing partner, is what he's called. He worked for the National Indian Gaming Commission for a number of years, so he's pretty familiar with Indian gaming specifically. All right, so these are the financials on a pretty high level for the casino for the first 7 months. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So total revenues for 7 months in 2018 is $32,842,000. So expenses is, so the first line is cost of goods sold. So this is how much it costs to furnish, to buy cigarettes, to buy fuel. This is the casino, the Little Wind, all 3 casinos, and the convenience stores and the gift shops and things like that within the casinos as well. And then anything like machines, when we buy food for events, that's all reflected in this. So that was $7.6 million. $11.4 million went to wages, taxes, and benefits for the employees. And employees' expenses and uniforms is $281,000. Supplies is another big category. It's $837,000. So I just want to make sure that supplies are things like coffee cups and things like that. The cost of goods sold are the food and the food that the to-go containers would go into. So anything we're selling is in that top category. Anything that sort of exists as a supply or something that we keep or something that doesn't have, that we're not selling is in that category. So repairs and maintenance, this is $1.1 million for the first 8 months. We've rented $550,000 about in equipment. Depreciation is sort of what we're allowed to categorize as depreciation on things that are buildings and things like that. Professional fees is $294,000. We'll go down, so insurance, marketing is another big, marketing and comps are another big expenses for the casino. Marketing for 8 months is $1.5 million and comps are $1.8 million. Utilities are pretty high as well as $887,000. And the others are bank fees, interest, and gaming commission expenses. So what we brought in, if we can grow up, is $32.8 million, and our expenses are $21 million. So we brought in that, we expended $21 million. The net income is $3.4 million, and so far in the, well, not now, but the first 7 months, the casino transferred $1.8 million to the tribe. All right, so the last little bubble I have is on Little Win loans. So Little Win loans in 2018, and this goes up to July as well, has approved 5,500 plus applications. So that includes regular loans, it includes our special loans of Sundance and back to school. And then we started funeral loans recently, so that includes that as well. So the Little Win loans are audited by our auditing firm with the tribe. They're a tribal entity, so they fall under us. So they, as a separate entity, has received an unmodified opinion as well. And Donham & Associates is that. So total revenues for, this is just part of this year. Yes? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I know I went to school in Norway, but 32 million minus 21 million in expenses, that's 10 million, not 3 point.
Yeah.
See between the net income and
If you make 32 million and you pay 21 million in expenses, you should have roughly $10 million left. How come we're sitting with 3.5?
That is a good question. So I don't know, honestly, I didn't actually look at that.
That's 6.5 million.
The good. All right, so part of this is, so net income is just, so these there's a discrepancy, I'm not disputing that. So part of the transfer should be added to the expenses, which doesn't account for the discrepancy, the transfer to the tribe as well. So, so the net income, I guess, is probably still, there's some money, I don't know, we'll probably have to get some information on that. Yes. I don't know why I didn't notice that. You want to use this one? Yeah.
That was my question, was the number on the bottom, subtracting that, they're not matching up. I think that's why you probably need your CEO here when you're talking about the casino. That's a lot of money that we're spending on the casino, people. And like I said, maybe get him here the next time you guys have a meeting or do an informational. I guess my question was to the councilmen that are here, from reading the Riverton Ranger about 2 weeks ago, on the front page again was that money that was misspent or was not approved, that 6 or 7 million that the tribe supposedly had spent, and the BIA was asking for that money back. As I read the story inside of there, they mentioned per capita payments, that if the tribe is not willing to pay that money back, that they were going to pursue any avenue to get that money paid back. And they said that might be per capita payments. And so if they take that money from all of us, that $60, whatever, you know, then that leaves us with zero. Maybe we could get some money from this casino here to be paid out to tribal members. Other tribes have done that with their casinos. So that's my question is, you know, what other avenues are they pursuing? That's the BIA. We pretty much have to listen to what they say, you know. And they did go back to the transportation program with Howard Brown Jr., and they did say that that wasn't even his place to ask for that money that he had asked for in the paper. This was, you know, it was in the paper 2 weeks ago when they said that, the BIA, that he didn't know that position, that it was the something about tourist money, and that wasn't his position to ask for that money. And so, you know, when they put those out there in the newspaper and we read it, and they say they're going to cut the per cap or whatever, they're going to take that money, you know, we don't get very much anyway. So that's my question, is what are we doing to pay that money back? Thank you.
So I have to admit, I didn't read the article. I'm not completely familiar with the reference to per capita. I will say that the way that our royalty is distributed to the tribes, there's a 15% account. So the royalties we receive as a tribe are divided 85% and 15%. 15% of it is deposited in a 15% account for the tribal government. 85 is deposited in an account that goes directly to tribal members. So that is something that is a federal law, and 85% of royalty has to be distributed to individual Indians. And so as a tribe, we're not allowed to use that money for anything else, and as a federal government, they're not able to capture that money for anything else. What they can capture, what they do have access to, is the 15% accounts. And so that might be what they're referencing in terms of royalty. But again, I didn't read that article, so I'm not exactly sure. But that is something that's available to them if they choose to take that. And so we've been working with the BIA to try and resolve some of these issues, provide them some information, and really give a good showing that we've been doing the work that they've been asking us to do, and that they've been asking us to do for, I think, a number of years. So that's, we don't know what the solution is, we don't know what the end result is going to be, but a lot of the folks that we've been working with in the BIA on the area and the agency and the area level have been very willing to work with us, have been very, very willing to kind of sit down with us, have us explain that situation to them, and you know, I think at the end of the day, they sort of realize that this isn't, there's not one person that's sort of, that this came from. So, you know, there's a lot of responsibilities from the BIA as well, and I think part of that was they don't have that documentation that they should have, and I think that's what's showing in those reports. So we've all sort of come to the realization that the system that we were using was broken. both on the tribal level, on the Joint Business Council level, on the agency level, and the regional level. Like nothing was working. And so we sort of had to have some very honest discussions with ourselves and with them about like, how do we fix this and how do we repair what was done in the past? And so those are the conversations we're having right now. We don't know what it's gonna be. We don't actually know what the DC level feds are thinking, because it's kind of hard to get them in, at the table on some of these discussions. But those are the discussions that we're having, and I think that to sort of go back to the first point, the 85% that pays out per capitas, that they're precluded by federal law from taking that and using that for anything else. Yeah.
Then I just want to add on the end of that is that our lawyers and our consultants have been working very diligently to protect the assets of the tribe and doing everything necessary to help get us into the right positions and to be able to speak with the right people to have these discussions on the federal level. And so again, we're working very diligently on this. Again, it's a very big engine that we're trying to work here. And again, it's something that extends far beyond our term as far as the issues that are trying to be looked at and taken care of. And so again, it's taken a lot of people to work on these efforts, which we are fully engaged in trying to resolve the issues. But again, we also must take into the fact that we have two tribal councils that have to convene on these issues, because again, it pertains to both tribes. And again, when the joint program was running, a lot of these actions and things that Roy is mentioning, those are the things that the federal government is questioning. And again, for us, it's trying to reach back into time and pull some of this information to help everyone get some clarifications. So we've also hired some consultants, some CPAs, again, to help us work on gathering that information that is very critical to answering a lot of these questions for the OIG and the federal government. And so it's a very slow process, but again, we're continuing to move in that direction, and hopefully within a month or two, we should be able to start seeing a little bit more clear information that can be really shown on behalf of both tribes and their efforts, that can actually be put out there for reference for everyone.
Every time we go through any kind of money, if we get money or a settlement from something, we always got to split it right down the middle. And from that time when the Joint Business Council was off, they were running that program by themselves. I mean, they were getting all the money in and doing all of that. So my question is, we need to make sure it's fair on how much money was actually taken, if there's a way to find that out, and then just split it up and repay it back however. Okay, that's it.
Good evening. I was on the council when all that happened, 2013 and 14. And the crazy part about it is we had good audits. The joint had good audits, okay? They did. But when somebody else comes in and wants the OIG to investigate it, the SBC really wanted it done. So there was a letter that came down from Billings area office in 2014, and the audits for them was good. It was good. There was no problem there. Then, when I got out of office, another letter came in when you guys got in, saying there was a lot of problems with the audit of 13 and 14. So the OIG had went to it twice, and the second time around, they found a lot of problems wrong. But to me, the money was spent correctly. Transportation, all the money went to where it was supposed to go. Sure, there's going to be discrepancies from OIG, but when that happened, our business council should have went to OIG and said, let's sit down, let's talk this over, let's find out what's going on. And we went line item by line item. I think we could have resolved this right away so we didn't have to pay this money back. If we do, we shouldn't have to pay back that much. That's just my opinion, but you know, I'd like to see that because the Arapaho tribe, at one time when I first got into office, we were under the OIG investigation too, and we ended up paying money back. But we took care of it. We sat down with the OIG, let's discuss this, let's go through this, let's go at line by line item, and which we did. And we got the cost practically down to nothing. So as a business council member, that's what I would have done, to take care of this problem right away. But I can guarantee you the audits were good at the time, but you let OIG in there to take another second bite, they're going to rip you apart. That's what really bothered me about this. So this is my opinion. Thank you.
Can I comment on that really fast? So, just real quickly, we do have a transportation committee which consists of 2 members of each council that's currently working with the transportation department and also law firm out of DC to work on this. Again, it's a work in progress. We're well aware of it. We know the concerns of the tribal members, how much money that is, and so you know it's something that we're working through to find answers and to complete the questions that OIG and other departments have about this. And so we're working. We're going to have meetings here in about 2 weeks. Maybe in Billings with the BIA. So we're constantly working on it, and it's something that is just, again, like we said, a work in progress. And each day, we're committed to getting this done and get it completed and getting it resolved for not only our tribe and working with also the Shoshone tribe.
Good evening. And then I just wanted to add to that in the first few readings of the reports in the Riverton Ranger and elsewhere, I think the part that I'm not hearing people talk about is that the Bureau was saying that they had people in approving monies that didn't have the experience and the knowledge on making those approvals. So the BIA also has a responsibility in that. And like Dean said, you know, we need to hold them responsible for that too, and we can't, you know, bear the brunt of that. So like he said, we should have sat down and went over that item by item by item and let their people say, well, yeah, we approved this. We said, go ahead and spend this money, but it was our mistake, because they have responsibility for that too. And if it was their mistake, then they should not charge us that money as a repayment. And so that's just, you know, that's one of the things that I haven't heard, is that the BIA has a big responsibility, and their people weren't trained properly on how to expend this money to the tribes. So I just wanted to add that.
Just a comment on the elections are coming up, and probably there's going to be a turnover again on the council. But my concern has always been, like, if people like outgoing councilmen have an issue or fighting for our tribe, they need to sit down and pass that over to them. And as a tribal community or members, we should be informed of that too, how that's going. I mean, there was a lot of issues when this council went out and you guys came on, and then the whole thing just went, what we were fighting for, being separated and getting our money and not getting our fair share, because it's always been half and half. Even though we have a big population and they don't have as much, they still want half of everything. And that's been going on forever. So, but with the outgoing council, they need to inform these new ones what's going on. And as far as like finding out how the money is spent and all of that, everybody knows about programs. I mean, there are some directors that spend their money within 6 months, and then they want more. And you're like, hey, you've already got your money. You need to turn in your paperwork, and if it's in compliance, you'll get more money. They'll look at it and say, hey, you did a good job. Here's some more money. you know, those grants, they work. I mean, all over America, and not just in Indian country, in urban cities and all that. People are applying for grants and, you know, utilizing them the way they should. And if they're doing a good job, then they get more money. So for me, that's always been an issue with, we continually just allow things to go like that big pie chart you had up there. If we were more, for people that are doing that type of work, they need to take responsibility for it. And as the council, you need to make sure that they are following their grants and making sure everything is copacetic, because once it doesn't, that machine just stops. I mean, it just continues, and then year after year after year, it's the same thing. And so finally, we're getting reports back that we're kind of, you know, getting back to there. Being on the Arapahoe Ranch board, we could never get any grants at all. And there were some out there, and the first thing they would say was, you know, yeah, we got this money and it's great, and where are you from? And I'd give them my name and who I was trying to get the money for, and they would say, oh, Northern Arapahoe, no, we can't, we're sorry. So it was just, and so our accountant is still, he works, I mean, he tries like heck. He's on the computer trying to figure out any way to get money for us. So, but like I said, we need to have some, what your ideals of what we're going to do to get out of this mess passed on to the next incoming council and continue to try to solve that problem. Thanks.
Yeah, so I think part of the
issue that we touched on is there's no real benefits, beneficial infrastructure set up for the transition, right? There's we have elections, and 10 days later they take office, and I think there's.
Maybe it's. Yeah, I know. Well, maybe that'll be the missing 8 million. We'll upgrade the microphones. So that's an issue that we identified early on, and I think there's a lot of perception coming in. I mean, just being realistic about it, there was a big turnover. I think the people that were outgoing and the people that were incoming came in with some perceptions about how that transition would work. And so we didn't take the time to really break that down and make it beneficial for the tribe. And that's something that I think we suffered from. But we also learned from that, right? So the 6 people that are in the office
now have their sights set on developing a transition plan. So we've been talking about it for about 16 months now, about what is important for the next term, the councils on the next term to understand what documents are imperative for them to have their hands on day one. We've been identifying those, and we've been really trying to make a push for, no matter what happens, you know, if it's us, if it's someone else, there's got to be a
transition. There's got to be a plan in place so that things can run a little more smoothly in this transition period. And so I think that's a really good point. And I think we have, as the 6 members in the seats now, have committed to making sure that we're available to the extent that we're invited to do that. But we also have some things, even if we're not invited, we're leaving a binder for everyone of like, this is what we've worked on, this is the documents, these are the contracts we signed. You know, it's difficult when you, as a sitting council member, you have to like research contracts that are in force. And I don't think it's fair to the people that sit in those seats. So we want to turn that around and develop and really hone in on that transition plan. So I think it's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's something we're committed to regardless of what happens in elections or, you know, who's in these seats next. So we've identified that, and I think it's a really good point. So I think to some of the other issues that were brought up, I think we understand the gravity of the situations that we're in, and this council has been working pretty diligently on trying to identify solutions, bringing other people in to help us conceptualize the issues, break them down, and finding a path forward to some of these. And some of these, there's no answers in sight, and some of these, the answer is pretty obvious. And some of these are just going to have to take a little bit more work. And so we realize that, and I think our intention is sort of to be honest about the process, to understand the situation that we're in. Try not to sugarcoat it for ourselves, most importantly, but also really just to work through some of the things that were broken and identify ways that we can fix those things and sort of move forward with that. So that's been a big issue. Those are pretty vague statements, but we find ourselves in these situations sort of fairly frequently. So that's been our stance, that's been our mindset for some of these things. And so I do want to apologize for this. I feel really embarrassed that I didn't catch that. I'm not sure if this is the right sheet that they gave me, which shows a discrepancy if I copy and pasted the other one. Either way, there's no excuses for my presentation. So I'll find the answers. We'll figure this out. I apologize for all of that. I know. And then so just real quickly, and then I definitely want to open it up for questions. So Little Win Loans is doing a lot better. Our per cap has increased to $60 from, I think, 25 it was in 2016. So they're able to give out more loans. The revenues for the first part of the 2018 were $437,000. So their outgoing expenses total up to $256,000. So they're bringing in that. So they're earning money off some of the interest that they're receiving. And so what they do with that is they make them loans available. There's been a trend in the loans of like back to school and Sundance where we're giving out a little bit higher amounts throughout the years. So the money that they're making on the income basically goes out to loans, funding loans to give out to people, and then hopefully that sort of multiplies throughout the years. And if we're able to keep per capita at a constant, similar level for the foreseeable future, we'll expect to be able to give out more loans and give out higher loan balances and expand that program. All right, so that's all I have in terms of the presentation. We have some time, we're here, so if there's questions or if there's comments. One of the council members we talked about this morning is we really need to be better at providing opportunities for people to talk to us about issues, and if they have solutions to those issues, to entertain them. There's a lot of brilliant people in our tribal membership, and we realize we need to make ourselves more available to hear those ideas from them. So I also want to encourage that if you have that as well.
Okay, so I had a question just about, I know elections are coming up, and I guess, want to know what EDC has been doing. Are we looking into starting any businesses anytime soon? What are they investing in? What are they looking into? What are they trying to do to help our tribe become more self-reliant, so we're not relying on all these grants, we're not relying on all these assistants? What is the Business Council and the EDC, what have they been up to with trying to help our tribe become more self-sufficient?
So, I think I sort of want to characterize this, I think that's a good question, the system that we have and sort of some of the inherent flaws in that. Because so EDC, we've asked EDC to help us move along some specific projects. This term, it seems like they've been focusing on providing opportunities for youth to do some things. So they've had some basketball leagues over the years, over this term. They've been partnering with people to revamp the building to provide a place for youth to go. And so that's really been their focus. And I think that sort of stems from a way of, like, how do we build our community up but sort of stay within the limitations that we have. And the limitations that have historically been there are that the Business Council is the only ones with the authority to develop or sign off on businesses, to authorize those relationships with business partners and things like that. And it has historically been the Business Council's job and purview to investigate those through the use of consultants and things like that. So I think a lot of times EDC is sort of left out of that equation. And I think it's, from my personal opinion, is it's sort of a flaw in our system, right? So the tribe authorizes the Business Council to sign off on things, and EDC can't do any of that. So EDC has to talk to the Business Council about that, and then Business Council has their own process for review, moving through things. That involve legal review, things like that. And I just, it's hard to sort of make that square peg fit in that round hole. Yeah, I mean, so the reality is they brought some things to us, and our process is, well, let's get legal review on this, let's get business review on this. So when that happens, we sort of essentially take it from them and try to identify ways to make it work. And they're elected officials as well, so they have their own ideas of what focus they want to have, and that's kind of the way the system works right now. So it's sort of difficult to work through that in a way that promotes businesses and promotes long-term economic development.
So I think they have been fluctuating. I think right now they're at 14. In 2017, and so I wouldn't say this if they were, if they were anyone else besides elected officials. I just want to clarify that we're not allowed to disclose personnel, wages, and things like that. But for elected officials, the rules are different. So they've sort of gone through the cycle of, I think at one time they were 16, and then they dropped down to like 10, and they were cut to 20 hours, and they've slowly started building back up from there. So I think right now they're at 14, but I'm not absolutely sure. Yeah, Sai?
I just want to speak to, my name is Sai Lee. I'm the CEO and Executive Director of Wind River Development Fund. And I've approached the Business Council on a couple of plans and ideas. The Business Council has 100% supported me. They have not opposed any of my ideas. One of those in particular was developing an earned income strategy specific to our EDC. So in other words, they generate their own money to support their own cost of operations, which is basically just their wages. That particular investor just walked away from the table. And the reason why he walked away to the table is because he expected us to continue to do the same thing, to be the price takers. And in reality, we own the asset, we need to be the price makers. And a lot of what we talk about at meetings like this is we expect the Business Council to create opportunities for all of us, when really the elected official's job is to create the environment that allows us to create opportunities for ourselves. And so this Business Council has done an excellent job in supporting me in my efforts. They have not opposed any of the ideas. They've allowed me to sort of run freely and bring ideas to the table. But with that particular investor, it wasn't just the fact that we were unable to come to a royalty amount. We also lacked a reservation-wide UCC. And without the Uniform Commercial Code, we're unable to secure certain brands of revenue. One of them would be commercial grade or investor grade, which allows investors to come on the reservation and allow us to sort of surrender some of our assets as security. So in other words, if the deal goes bad, they can take what's theirs and leave. We don't necessarily have the environment that allows that because we have to get both tribes' approval. So it's very difficult. It's not as easy as it would seem. All you have to do is, because the reality of it is there's no way to settle any sort of arbitration without us giving up our sovereign immunity, which is what we fought for, and it's hard for us to give that up on every single transaction. And so when it comes to economic development specifically, the Wind River Development Fund has plenty of loan funds that's ready to go out. So if you've got a good idea, I'd be happy to finance that. I'd also be happy to bring more resources to the table. But I have not, as the Wind River Development Fund is a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution, I have not relied on the tribal government to support any cost of my operations or anything. Rather, I've looked for them for support, and they've done exactly that. So if anybody's got any grand ideas that you think we need to source fund or crowdfund some of these projects, bring them to me. I got plenty of resources, we've got plenty of support. I'm not going to watch you, bring your cards in with me. But I'm not going to watch you across from Pines. I'll hear it again. Okay. Next year? Meetings? Okay. You can come and see me anytime. Okay. I just wanted to speak to that, not necessarily on the council's behalf or speak for you guys. I just wanted everybody to understand that economic development is, in any society, and I don't mean to be preaching to anybody here, but in any society, the government does not run businesses. And I think Dean would agree with that as a past council member. The government does not run businesses in any society, in any successful tribe, comparatively when you look at Southern Youth or you look at any of the successful tribes, the government does not run their enterprise. There is clear separation, nor does the community depend on the government for that. Rather, the enterprise generates money, gives it to tribal government, tribal government can do what they want with it, but they do not run the enterprises. They are not the focal point of what economic development looks like on their reservations. I'd be happy to share a lot of those studies with you and articles with you, if anybody wants to come and visit on it. Again, I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody, or in support of anybody. I just wanted to explain sort of what economic development looks like from a third party removed from the structure. Exactly what Chairman Brown is talking about, that there is a flaw in the system, and that's exactly it. Okay.
So we're on the discussion of economic development. Again, as Roy mentioned earlier in the presentation, that's why we've been wanting to create an actual economic development board that would actually be more specific to working
on these ideas and finding solutions to help start an engine and create a vehicle that tribal members can utilize to start that process. That was one of the biggest questions that the Longmont people had, because they took a tour of the reservation. They wondered why. They wondered why there was no businesses on the reservation. And I helped them to
point to help them understand that
there's not a very good reception from the border towns that sit next to the reservations. And so you have banking systems that really don't treat our tribal members fairly when they come with a proposal to look at opportunities to help themselves as entrepreneurs. I said, so you have a system that's already set up against you to help you get the starting cash flow to begin any type of enterprise on the reservation. So I
hit on that much for them to help them understand, because for them they were wondering, well why ain't the tribal members using the everyday uses that every society has. Everyone has to buy toilet paper. Everyone has to buy material because they're wondering. So you guys make a lot of clothing and you do beadwork. So where do the tribal members get that from? And they were asking, why hasn't a tribal member created that business and offered that service, and things like that. And so I said, it comes back down to actually having a building to actually have a business in. I said, many of the tribal members don't have the access to capital to be building those type of businesses from the ground up. I said, so that's kind of a big issue is people have a lot of good ideas, but again, they don't have the capital backing to put up their own business. And so, and then I also touched into the fact that we also have a BIA system that red tapes a lot of land, which landlocks a lot of these places that could be developed. And so they wondered why everyone was so spread out and why we weren't more closer together and to be able to actually create our own town, basically. And just the same, you know, that's something we have always probably thought about individually. And again, this is one reason why we, and specifically when we first came onto council, we drafted a set of priorities. We said, okay, you know, I don't know Roy's priorities, I don't know Lee's priorities, I don't know any of the other three's priorities. So we began by saying, okay, you know, can you guys, each and every one of us as individuals, identify what your priorities are for this 2-year term and what it is that you guys would like to accomplish within the 2-year term. And so we all drafted our own list, and from that list we all came to the conclusion and consensus of what we were all familiar with within each of our lists. And from that point we garnered a list, and from that list we made the list of priorities from 1 to, I think it was like 6 or 7. And so that's kind of how we went. And one of my highest priorities was economic development, you know, was trying to find ways that we can look at what that has to be, you know. And so that was kind of some of the things that we all went through as individuals to try and come to a consensus with each other to be able to work in the same direction and have a better focus within all of us. That's it.
I just kind of wanted to add to the comments made by the council tonight. Back in 2016 at General Council, there was a resolution presented to the General Council and passed that education was the #1 priority along with RAPO language. And so as a council, we've been struggling to find how can we meet that resolution, and we've been working with the new UW President Nichols, Lori Nichols, and also James Trosper. And we're looking at the $2.2 million endowment that's at the University of Wyoming. So right now the council is working with James Trosper and President Nichols and the UW Foundation to possibly host a fundraising event in Jackson Hole, Wyoming later this fall for the endowment, so that we can build that endowment and more students can go to school. Right now, Sky People Higher Education has an outstanding retention rate of over 90%, which is phenomenal right now. And under the leadership of our director Alma Brown, you know, we've seen some students come back, traditional and non-traditional students that want to go back to school. And so, you know, we're working hard with her also on an event that will be held down at the Colorado History Museum later this month. We've been working with the Colorado Governor Indian Affairs Office and also the National Congress of American Indians to host a black tie event in Colorado, so that we can raise money for scholarships, you know, because we have a good problem right now. We have more students coming in and applying, and we just don't have the financial means to meet everybody's scholarships. We're still a supplemental program, and someday we hope to fully fund all of our kids, you know, because that's what we're in it for, is these children and the students, so that we can educate them, you know, and that's our future. It's education. You can't go wrong with education. And some of the things that the council has allowed me and some of the other council to work on with Sky People Higher Education and the director there. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Nicole Watt-Wagon, and I just wanted to make a comment. We come together today for information from our leaders, and the information we receive is not always good. Our people are hungry, they're cold, they're sick, and they're crying. Our leaders need to be better for our tribe year after year so that all prosper. All of our people. Today, one of our leaders was laid to rest, and I knew her, and she worked here, and she died of cancer. And when I got news today I hurt for her and her family and her son. I don't know if you guys are aware, but it was on Facebook, and her son took a picture of a backhoe. It was empty. Nobody was there to help bury his mom. That hurts. No one was there to help the family. They were making all kinds of calls for help. This family buried their loved one by hand. That saddens my heart. My heart cries for them. We all have been there and done that. I laid my mom to rest this year. I laid my grandmother to rest last year, my niece. I feel that pain for them. And that's an elder. We're all elected. Where are our elected officials today? We come from great warriors. That's what I'm taught. That's what I'm told. My grandmother would tell me it was the Arapaho tribe that helped defeat Custard at Little Bighorn. We came together as one. Their blood flows with our blood. It was not one family against another family, but a tribe as a whole that fought the enemy. That's what she would tell me. She would share those stories. Our leaders are allowing a non-tribal member to speak out against our tribal members, intimidate those that opposed his wasteful spending. They do not follow our resolutions or our general counsel. That's a fact. It is now time for us to come together and fight as one people for our elders, our children, for our traditions, and our way of life. We must encourage everyone to speak up for what is rightfully ours. We need to get everyone to vote for new leaders, and we need to be strong again. Our people are hurting. They're in poverty. We are Northern Arapaho tribe. We come together from great warriors. Let us all be warriors of our ancestors. And the reason why I'm stating that, it's in the papers, and I've stated it before. I shared it at the last informational meeting, and I'll give an example. When the papers stated that we give backpacks, we feed hot dogs, hamburgers, whatever, over 10 years, it cost the tribe $1 million. I would prefer something for our children to go to, something concrete for our youth. They're lost. There's no excuse what happened today for our elder. We always talk about our elders, the respect, for the love of. It affects and touches all of us. And it saddens my heart. And she was a very, very beautiful lady, very quiet, did her job well, and suffered and worked to provide for her family. So may our prayers go out to that family and her son. They're in mourning, and it hurts. We need to think about those things. And that happened today. And from what I understand with our casino here is to be helping our people to be self-sufficient. Somehow, that's lost. We need to go back to what was done and said, reflect back, and how we're going to be better. What the resolution stated, elders, youth, education. Somehow, we lost our elders and our youth. There's nothing for them. Something needs to be set up for them. They're getting old. We need to be asking them, what do they need? How can we better your life? I visit many reservations, and they do that for their people. We need to do that for our people here. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good and very, very true words. Again, so sorry to hear about that someone wasn't there for the service. Our entertainment committee is usually the ones who are on top of those things. We weren't made aware of that issue, so we apologize, to hear that, especially on behalf of the family.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. These guys up here talk about EDC, right? I'm all for EDC, but we've got to utilize our EDC, which we never had for years. Why are we paying these guys to be on the EDC board when they don't give them anything to do? EDC should be go out trying to find jobs, whatever, create something, then turn it over to these guys. Not them go find, do it themselves, and leave EDC out. We got 5 guys collecting wages for years. How much is that? $60,000, $70,000 a year maybe for 5? I'm just guessing, I don't know. We have to utilize our EDC. That's what it's there for. If not, get rid of it. But then where that money can go? Somebody else's pocket? We got to do something with our tribe, people. We got to do it now. It's not too late to do something. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay, I just had a question about, I know a couple of years ago, we signed the war on drugs and everything. We have it posted up in all the buildings. My question is, what are we actually doing about it? I mean, it's posted here in a casino, and yet we constantly have tweakers in a casino, constantly. And what a lot of people don't realize is, that those chemicals ooze out of people's pores. It can get on the machines. It can affect other people, including our elders who like to come here, including children. I just kind of want to know what do we have in place to handle that. I've always asked, well, what can't we kick them out? I've asked the security guards here, I've asked numerous people here, why don't you just kick them out? Well, we don't really have a right to do that. And it's like, well, we have the sign posted in our business, in our places of business. It's not supposed to be allowed. And yet here we are, every night we have an episode of The Walking Dead constantly. I just want to know, do we have anything in place? What can we do about it? Meth is getting really bad around here. And I just want to know, do we have anything in place? What are we doing about this meth issue?
Okay, as it pertains to what she's referencing is exactly here at the casinos. We as a council have brought those same concerns to the CEO, Jim Conrad, and his staff. My specific request was to ask for more security, asking for security at the doors of every one of our establishments so that they can actually screen everyone as they're coming through to get a better understanding of how to identify those people. And also the fact that the parking lots, there's a lot of issues that happen within the parking lots. So I asked him just the same. I had the same question as you, is what efforts are we putting forth to combat these things? We've asked the Wind River PD, the BIA, on the same level. what are you guys doing to combat the issues that we're facing every day, and the fact that this drug is terrorizing our whole reservation. And so the responses that I've gotten was the Gaming Commission and the commissioners were working on helping to ensure that our security were getting the types of trainings necessary to help identify some of these people, because again, that's where they were, is wondering, okay, how do we tell if someone's intoxicated or not when it pertains to meth? Because with alcohol, you can identify that by smell, look, and how their demeanor. But on meth, it's a little more tricky, because again, there's really no gauge that you can actually put forth to say, well, here's a breathalyzer, take this, and that's going to help us identify and know that you're high on meth. So that is a little more trickier, but at the same time, we know that there's obvious ways to tell, and so I also push that issue to get more training for them, to help them understand how to identify and who, and kind of know more about their rights as far as security of our establishments on what they can and can't do, and things like that. And just the same with the PD. We've asked what they're doing on that, and again, it all falls back to long-term investigations, and there really is no upfront emphasis to really smack it in the mouth, to say, it's more of a long, drawn-out type of process that they're working on, and a lot of it goes back to the investigations that they're currently under, which they can't really speak to us about, and disclose any of that information, but they give us that much. But again, for us as the leadership, we're the same. We're just like, our communities are being ravaged by this. Can you guys please show us some better efforts that you're working to help on those issues. And just the same with the CEO. I pleaded with him to bring on more security staff and to help people get the training necessary so that they can help identify these people.
I'll actually go ahead and answer that. Jenny Wildcat, I'm with the gaming agency. We have done quite a few different things to combat that. We actually have a close partnership with the BIA, DCI, and the FBI. We have, every other month we meet with them, and we have a lot of reporting that goes between all those entities, so we can knock out these, or they can do drug stings, that type of thing. We have the ability to test our employees if there's a suspicious behavior, that type of thing. We also institute a training, drug recognition, how to dispose of drugs. We've beefed up the handbook where we can toss somebody out. Of course, they've got to evaluate whether it's if the individual has Parkinson's, that type of disease or something. So we don't want to discriminate against anybody, but we've got to make sure that they're kicking them out for the right reasons. So the casino's grown by leaps and bounds when it comes to addressing that, because of the memo that was put out about being a drug-free place. We take that very seriously. There have been quite a few arrests actually that happened on our property that you may not have heard about. And they were handled by the DCI and the FBI. So we have a lot of patrols around our parking lot, because we're not blind. We know a lot of drug activity goes on in our parking lot, particularly down at 789. But we're doing whatever we can to address it. And we also encourage anybody, if you guys see any illegal activity out there, to report it. That's always the first and foremost thing, is everybody reporting that, so we can nip it in the bud.
Anyone else? All right, so I wanted to quickly, before we wrap up, sort of comment. There was a lot of good points and really important issues that were brought up in the last few comments about drugs and about sort of not having resources and our economic development. And I think what we realize as we sit in these chairs is that they're all connected. The drug problem creates crime, which creates discrepancies in family structures, meaning broken homes, fathers are away, mothers are away, unsupervised children who don't have a place to go, and parents that don't have jobs, right? It's all connected, and they're deeply embedded problems within our communities. And I think the struggle that we have is that for many people, the 6 people that sit in these chairs, they're the answer. And I think the reality is that as community members, we are the answer. And it's difficult to sort of reconcile that because, we provided $1 million in assistance this year that goes to light bills, that goes to car payments, that goes to, paying people to buy food to put on their table. Those are very necessary expenses to help people stay on their feet. But, they're not long-term. And they're not building youth centers. That money's not going toward youth centers. And I think part of that is the realization of, we have to have leaders in these 6 chairs that are able to plan long-term, but also that are able to motivate and captivate the ingenuity of the community. Right? We need your ideas. We need you to step up and feel like, how do we stop this meth problem? Right? We have jurisdiction in terms of police departments and what goes on in our buildings, but we don't know what goes on in your homes. We can't affect that. How do we help families deal with that? How do we help families that deal with low incomes, that struggle to make it from paycheck to paycheck? We can provide jobs, but that doesn't always work if those jobs aren't there long term, if people are getting laid off after the grant expires. So these are all issues that are connected, and I think the reality of us is that we can build youth centers, we can send money to people, but the community is really going to be the answer to a lot of these issues. And I think that's the realization that we were talking about today, is we need to make ourselves as tribal leaders more available to the brilliance of our community, to your ideas, and to be able to help us combat the issues in our communities through your efforts. Sorry, that was a big soapbox. It wasn't intended, but I did want to respond to those because we feel it up here. We talk about it constantly. So this is the last chance. I think the food's gone, but if any other questions, the microphone is open. All right, well, thank you all so much for coming. What? Oh. All right, well, thank you all for coming. It's really great to see this many people and community here. And we encourage you all to keep coming and sharing your ideas and solutions with us. Thank you all. Have a good night.